Tickets are on sale now for the 4th annual Shocktober in Irvington, presented by the Obsessive Viewer podcast. Join the hosts of the Obsessive Viewer on October 6th, 2017 at the Irving Theater for a one-night event screening of short horror films, including the premiere screenings of the latest film in J.P. Leck's cross-medium Elsewhere World universe, the latest film from Snapshot Productions, and much more. Come celebrate the horror genre in the historic Irvington area and meet the filmmakers with live Q&As after each screening. You can also win DVDs and Blu-rays, movie-related party games, horror-themed Funko Pop figures, gift cards to Irvington businesses, and so much more. Tickets are on sale now at shocktoberinirvington.com. All proceeds go directly to the Irvington Historical Society. And whether at the Irving Theater or in your nightmares, we will be seeing you on the 6th of October.
It's the Indiana Geeking podcast with this week's guests, a bunch of people from Gen Con. Yay!
Got Even bones and sky put you in your place. This time if you will run an equal race. And I guess I can see how things like desperation and fatigue. But I agree with you, Spike. I know it was nothing more than logic. And so the first command was heaviest to hold.
Good day, my friends. This episode of the Indiana Geeking podcast, as you heard earlier, does not really have any local creators. No, instead, we are taking advantage of our press credentials at Gen Con 50, which wrapped up a few weeks ago, and we're talking to some of the game creators that were attending that show. This episode was actually stated to be released last week, but I'm sorry, I got hit really hard. I wasn't feeling very well. I couldn't put anything together. So while the interviews were done with the idea this was going to be released last Friday, it is instead being released this Friday. So that means, like, when it comes to the Dized Interview, as they're talking about the Kickstarter getting ready to start, it has actually already started. You can find all the information in these interviews in the blog post attached to this podcast, as you all pretty much well know by this point. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and start introducing how we did the podcast. I'm going to just put these interviews in chronological order from when we did them. And let's hear what these different creators had to say. Let's roll on into it. So Friday was the day we did all of our interviews. We started out at booth 343, where we talked to the creator of Syrinscape. Let's hear what we talked about. All right, we are here at Gen Con 2017 at the Syrinscape booth, and we are talking with the creator. So go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us what Syrinscape is.
Awesome. My name is Ben Looms. I'm the creator of Syrinscape. Syrinscape is an app that makes beautiful, immersive sound effects and a movie-like soundtrack for your tabletop games. I specifically designed it for myself to help me keep the attention, my attention on my players in the game. So rather than distractingly trying to fiddle with recordings and YouTube tracks and all sorts of things, I can just hit a single button and the players are immersed and concentrated on the game in the sound of a medieval village or an explosive dragon attack or a spooky dungeon or a 1920s car chase or whatever they want.
Yeah, and it's cool because you do not only a lot of just good, I kind of hesitate to use the word, but generic soundtracks that you can use with almost any game. But you also have a really good working relationship with Paizo, the makers of Pathfinder, correct?
That's right. We have the official license to make the official sounds for the world of Galileo. So we've gone through and we're supporting their adventure parts. So if you're playing Rise of the Rune Lords, you can just literally click through a series of scenes in the Syrinscape app without having to prepare ahead. You've got the goblin attack on Sandpoint at the beginning of Rise of the Rune Lords, and in fact the whole adventure we've done Strange Aeons and Hell's Rebels and lots of stuff. And then, as you said, then you've just got your kind of generic is a weird word, isn't it? Yeah. Dragons, goblins, orcs, ogres, sandworms, and a whole lot of sci-fi stuff as well, which is great.
And speaking of sci-fi, one of the big things that they're putting out this year is Starscape, right? Starfinder. At least my listenership knows that I will mess up constantly, so that's why I double check. It's Starfinder, and the really cool thing is, due to your good working relationship, the game just got released, and there's already stuff out from you, isn't there?
That's right. Starfinder is the first RPG to be released with a full sound solution right from the very get-go. So every single starship that's in the core rulebook is supported in Syrinscape. So you can just grab the stats of that starship, jump in it, hit cruise, and you'll hear the sound of the starship engines wind up, and the distinctive cultural sound of the way they like to build their ships is built into Syrinscape. It's very, very cool. For instance, the Pact World starships are kind of Firefly sort of ships with physical buttons and clicks and little sort of card reader type sounds. And when we were speaking with the Paizo guys about the Castathar starships, they were like, well, these guys are kind of the Apple store of starships. So theirs are all like slick, beautiful sounds and bloop, 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 bloop kind of sounds, and it's very cool. So the drive sounds of the different starships all sound different depending on the culture they're in. And then, the sound sets, the Starship sound sets for Starfinder in Syrinscape are actually built around the rules. So there's the coolest thing about Starfinder is that when you jump on a ship, each of the players gets to take a role. Just like in Star Trek, there might be a science officer or an engineer, a helmsman, and a captain, and a gunner, of course. And each of those people has a sound which activates when they do an action. So it's really, really cool.
So how do you go ahead and build this whole sound set from the ground up with something that's not even finished yet when you're starting to work on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was at Gamma with Paizo, and they were basically doing the final playtesting on the Starship battles, and I played that over and over again. Jason Bullman, who did the design for that, we sat around and chatted basically while we did playtest after playtest for store owners and distributors, chatting about how we could actually structure the sound. And I sort of sat there playing the science officer and thinking, what would be cool right at this moment in the game? And we came up with all these concepts, and that was fantastic. I even managed to enter an argument about whether a certain DC of certain tasks was too high or too low, and I got a little bit of a change in the game just from me, which is very cool. And then, then I went back to Sydney and imagined what it could be, built a basic structure of it, sent that off to Paizo. They're so engaged with their third-party publishers. It's fantastic. And they came back with all this excellent feedback. Then we bounced back and forwards, and now we've got a really great product that's going to be fantastic at the table.
All right, excellent. So we'll go into where you can find all this in a moment. We're not going to leave everyone hanging on that. But, and then, of course, on the blog post that'll be attached to this podcast episode, I'll have all the links for you in there. But where do you go? What are you going to be working on in the future? I know here at Gen Con this weekend, you've got recording booths set up. You're inviting people to come in and record sound effects. What are you working on right now?
We're working on continuing supporting the Pathfinder adventures, releasing content every single month, so that there's always new content in Syrinscape, where there's massive bestiaries full of monsters and different distinctive sounds, and that still need doing. There's an incredibly vast array of fantasy and sci-fi locations that are left to do, and basically we're led by user feedback. People whinge for something. I want a swamp. Why isn't there a swamp? And we released a swamp recently. So we're always enriching Syrinscape with more and more stuff. Plus the community is also enriching Syrinscape, which is fantastic. We'd never done a jungle up until a couple of months. One of the fans actually built a jungle, and that's been released as community content within the app, which is super cool. Yeah, supporting the Starfinder adventures is a really, really exciting thing to be getting into as well. Plus some really exciting more licenses that we're negotiating at the moment that I can't talk about, which are really exciting.
Now, we're going to kind of back up a little bit, because it's occurred to me that while you and I have spoken before, not many people are going to dive back into the podcast archive or anything like that. Do you want to go ahead and give us a brief rundown of exactly how Syrinscape works? Because I know it's a computer program that runs on your computer. It's not CD set or anything like that, which is what makes it so nice. But do you want to give any of the details?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So it's an app on Android or iOS phones and tablets, and also PC and Mac. What makes Syrinscape special is, unlike a 15-minute looped recording of a medieval town, which is, by definition, completely uncustomizable and always repeats itself, Syrinscape actually has all the elements of that medieval town sound all broken into separate elements, which are all triggered by the computer randomly, and are also all customizable, turn-upable, turn-downable, turned-off, turn-onable by the user. So, for instance, if you've got the dogs barking in the town, rather than every single 15 minutes, the same patterns of dogs comes back exactly and precisely and becomes ultimately noticeable by the players and breaking of immersion. What the element of dogs does is a random timing, it picks up a random dog sample and picks a random direction, sets it at a random distance, applies the reverb of that environment dynamically, and then plays it back. Meanwhile, it's doing the same for horses and the general bub of people, or maybe a car goes past every now and then, or a blacksmith, is heard in the distance. So the whole environment is rich and ever variable. And then, when you hit dragon attack, all the same thing. If you think of all the elements of a dragon battle, the beating of its wings, the roars, its breath weapons, men and women screaming and running for their lives, the sound of buildings crackling, all those elements all start up, all with a single touch from the Game Master. You actually don't need to do anything other than just touch Dragon Attack, and Syrinscape takes care of the rest. That's the whole thing about being able to stay focused on the story. But if you do want to, you might like the epic music that we put in. You could turn that epic music off, turn on the sound of thunder and rain instead, and add some goblins. And that way you can annoy and drench and burn your players to a crisp at the same time.
Nice. And while we're going ahead and wrapping this up, where can one of my listeners that's really been looking to take their game to the next level, where can they find your product?
Yep, type Syrinscape into Google. You can even misspell it, but if you do want to spell it right, it's Syrinscape. You can download the apps for free to try. Each app comes with 2 free sound sets to test on your computer. Then you can buy the sound sets one by one. For instance, that Dragon Battle we're talking about, maybe you bought your Dragon Mini for $20. You buy your Town Flip Map for $14.99. Then you can buy the Dragon sound set for $3.99. Or you can subscribe and unlock absolutely everything all at once, and the entire back catalog lights up, and you can use anything you like. Because players are always going in the places you don't expect. So say they suddenly decide they're going to go and attack the kobolds. You just literally type kobolds into the search bar in Syrinscape, and a couple of different kobold options will pop up, and you can trigger one of those.
All right, excellent. Well, hey, Ben, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me today. It's always a pleasure seeing what new you're bringing to Gen Con every year, so thank you very much.
It's an absolute pleasure. And look, check out the Starfinder stuff. Hopefully, as you said, there'll be some links. Go to the store and look at the Starfinder stuff. Watch the demo videos of the Starfinder starships. They're absolutely amazing. I'm so proud of them.
Well, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Lovely.
Once we were done talking to Syrinscape, we rushed over to booth 1901, where Liz had a chance to talk to Calliope about their game, Tsuro.
All right, we're at Gen Con 2017. This is Liz at the Calliope booth to talk Tsuro. With me is a rep from Calliope. Could you introduce yourself and tell me what you do?
Sure. My name is Bill Fogarty. I'm the ambassador of Buzz here at Calliope Games. So my job is to let people know about how wonderful and exciting Calliope is, the things we're working on, and the things that are coming up in the near future. So,
can you give me a description of the gameplay of Tsuro?
Absolutely. So in Tsuro, the game of the path, you're following your path. It's a very Zen-like experience. Every player will have 3 tiles, and on this tile are a series of paths. You can turn it in one of 4 directions. It's a square. And then once you play it, your pawn must follow the path that you've created. Pick up another tile after you're done. Well, as each player plays on this 6x6 board, this grid, you're going to eventually get to the point where you and other people are both going to be about to enter into the same grid, and whoever plays that tile will control the path for all of those players. Anytime a path appears in front of you, you must follow it. If 2 players' pieces run into each other on the path, they're both out. If you follow the path off the board, you're out of the game. And so at the end of the game, the winner is the person who is still remaining on his or her path.
There was recently an article published about Tsuro being used with teens with autism. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. There was a counselor who works with teens that are on the autism spectrum. He had recently played Tsuro and really enjoyed it. I was sitting in his office, and when his patient came in, the patient asked about the game. He started to explain it, and because it's a very easy game to teach, he thought, well, let me just show it to you. Easier to show than to explain. Set up the game, they played, and the teenager beat him pretty handily. And he said, that's amazing. I've played this before, and you just wiped the floor with me. And the teen said, well, that's because you weren't planning ahead. You weren't thinking about the pieces you have and what strategy you were going to have going into the future. And it suddenly occurred to him that's the message he was trying to teach when these teens that he's working with on various places on the autism spectrum have to deal with adversity, unexpected things that happen, and the various emotions that could flare up when those things happen. And he realized that regardless of who they are, teens don't like to hear lectures from adults. And rather than explain how you have to plan ahead, how you have to make these strategies to deal with things, and listen to some old person tell you, this game demonstrated in a very easy-to-show way, in a very non-confrontational way, the idea of planning ahead. And so he has started using Tsuro in his work with his various patients to help teach that message in a way that doesn't confront, that doesn't bully, that doesn't, I'm lecturing you.
So then along treatment, he could use that as a metaphor and as an example so that they can connect those things to real life situations. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely. And really, when you think about it, all games tend to do that. You're trying to sort of plan ahead, mitigate possible things that are going to happen. But he found that in a game like Tsuro, which I can teach someone in 30 seconds, where you have 3 tiles, you place a tile and move your pawn along the path that's on the piece, that it encapsulates that in a very easy to communicate way that is easy to understand, and that then you can explain the metaphor.
That's very nice. Thank you. I was also going to ask, because when I was first introduced to the game, I was introduced to the app that goes on your phone. So I wanted to talk about that. And then if you wanted to talk about some of the other games and how the physical game translates to using on the app. Sure.
Well, Thunderbox is the company that translated Tsuro into the app version that's out. As a company, they are board game players. They love the tactile experience of that game, the touching the pieces, the feeling, the hearing, etc. And so when they approached us and we decided to work together on this project, their goal was to create an app that as closely as possible gave you that experiential, the feel of the game. And I think they did it very well. They're working on Roll For It, another one of our games, which is a dice rolling game. And their goal was to make sure that the animation of the dice looked as real as possible, that the look of the dice looked like dice, that when you roll the dice, you hear the sound. And finally, when you're ready to roll the dice, you see the dice in a little dice tray. When you shake your phone or shake your tablet, that's what causes the dice to shake, so that you really have that experience of I'm picking up these dice, I'm rolling them, and I'm seeing what comes from them. So that really is sort of their motivation, is how can we not try to turn a game into something completely different, but how can we turn an app into that tactile board game, tabletop, cardboard feel.
My daughter, she's a teenager, and I played the online app before we got the physical board game, and really, really enjoyed it. You can also play through Facebook with friends who have the app. But when we bought the physical game, I was really, really impressed with the artistry and the quality of the pieces and things. I don't know who you have for an artist, but it's absolutely exquisite. I love the box and the way everything was presented.
That's great. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's when the game was conceived, that was the idea, that we wanted that experience to sort of, as you open the box, that the very first thing you see is a piece of rice paper with the art on it. It has that feeling of a Japanese work of art, and we wanted that experience to translate through the box itself, with the dragon and the phoenix art, with the pieces themselves having that feel to them. And we constantly are told by people, you could probably do it a lot cheaper. You don't really need that piece of rice paper. It doesn't really serve the purpose. You can make your rule book less ornate and save a few pennies here and there. Why not do that? And the answer is that's not what that game is supposed to be. That's not the experience we want to have. And ultimately, when you buy a game, what you're buying is not so much the pieces and whatnot. It's the experience you're going to have with your friends, having that communal experience. I think there are a lot of people out there who play games who can think back to, do you remember that time when we got together to play that game and you said this and I laughed so hard and this thing happened? And that's really what we're talking about, is not just creating a little bit of entertainment for an hour, but rather to create experiences that people are going to have and share and really treasure.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for talking to me today. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share?
If you haven't played Tsuro, it's available in the App Store, iOS and Android. It's also available in your friendly local game store, and we'd love for you to take a look at it, try it out, and see if it's a game that you and your family will love.
All right, thanks again.
Once Liz was done talking to Calliope, we had a little bit of time as we headed on over to booth 103, where I had the chance to talk to Paizo about their new sci-fi role-playing game, Starfinder. We're still here at Gen Con 2017, and right now I'm over at the Paizo booth talking with one of their designers. So, sir, go ahead, introduce yourself, let us know what you do.
Hi, I'm Rob McCrary, and I'm the Starfinder creative lead at Paizo.
I know Starfinder is the big thing this year, so you want to go ahead and tell us what that is?
Yeah, Starfinder is a science fantasy role-playing game. It's based on the Pathfinder rules, and it takes place in sort of an alternate future of the Pathfinder universe.
Okay, so it's what do you mean by alternate future of Pathfinder?
Well, we don't want to. We still are supporting Pathfinder, and we don't want the two games to necessarily invalidate something. So people who are still playing Pathfinder and they, I don't know, destroy the world or something, we don't want that to have an effect and say, well, we can't play Starfinder now. So it's kind of a way to separate it and say, at some point, basically, what it is kind of one of the core mysteries of our setting is something called the Gap, which is a universe-wide amnesia that just wiped out everyone's memory and wiped out history books. And during that time, Galileo, the planet where Pathfinder's setting is, disappeared. And so this is sort of a way to separate the two settings and the two games from each other, but still leave them connected in some way.
Now, what made your teams decide to go ahead and start going with more of a science fiction, futuristic aspect with the Pathfinder and this system?
We had done a few years back a book for Pathfinder called Distant Worlds that explored the other planets in the same solar system as Galarian. So we kind of had a little bit of possibility of space that you could do in Pathfinder, just not futuristic. And we had that kind of setting, and we started thinking we all like science fiction and science fantasy, and we're like, well, let's sit there and let's try to come up with a way to bring some science fantasy in it and take that setting even further. And that's what we did. That's basically how we decided to do it.
Now, I know this has been huge this year. This episode's probably going to come out. We're recording on Friday. It's probably going to be out in about a week. So, but I know right now, if you come into Gen Con, you're not getting a copy of this, right?
That's correct. We sold out of everything we had at the show yesterday in about 6 hours, but we still have plenty in distribution. So you can go to your local game store. They should still have Starfinder in stock. We also do PDFs of all of our books. So if you go to Paizo.com, you can download the PDF or order it from us as well.
Now, I'm not sure if you're allowed to say this, but how many copies did you guys bring to Gen Con yesterday?
I actually don't know how many copies. I mean, there's been a lot more interest than we really expected. So our distributors have wanted more, stores have wanted more. We brought as many as we could, more than we've bought, I think, of most of our hardbacks before. And yeah, they just all sold out.
Obviously, you had a hand in designing Starfinder. Is there anything in there that you put in? Is there any cool little Easter eggs, or is there anything you're really proud of in there? I know it's asking a designer what they're proud of is like choosing their favorite kid sometimes. But is there anything in there that people should keep their eye open for?
I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that people should keep their eye out for. Being this is a science fantasy game, there's starships and starship combat. I really love the rules for being able to design your own starship. There's some other things that I like, which was deciding what things from Pathfinder's setting to bring forward into Starfinder. So if you're familiar with any of the Pathfinder stuff, as you read Starfinder, you'll notice a few of those Easter eggs. Some of the organizations, some of the gods still exist in the future in Starfinder. So it was kind of fun deciding which of those things. A good example would be the Hell Knights. These are these sort of lawful evil knights that model their ideas off of hell and everything. They're a big part of one of the countries in Pathfinder, and they're now in space as well in Starfinder.
Now, to go ahead, I know earlier today I talked with Ben Looms over at Syrinscape. How do you work with someone like that on bringing in a sound set to a role-playing game? I know he told me how he worked with you guys a little bit. What's your experience working with a group like that? Did you have any activity or any hand in that or work with that at all?
I personally didn't, but Ben and Syrinscape have been doing things with us for Pathfinder for quite a while, so we kind of trusted him to come up with some good stuff. I think we gave him some of our basic Starship stuff so that he could come up with the sounds for that, and so what we've heard so far sounds great.
We'll get this wrapped up because I know you got a lot of people to talk to today, and this booth is packed. Not as packed as it was yesterday, but it's still pretty packed. So is there any place, where can people go to find information on not just Starfinder, but also the other games you guys have?
The best place would be Paizo.com. That's Paizo. We have a blog. We were talking about all stuff. We also have a really big message board community, so where lots of fans come on there and talk. We at the company try to get on the boards as well to communicate with people. So if you have any questions, you want to find out more, you can ask questions on the boards. The fans are really good with welcoming new people and answering their questions, and we at Paizo try to keep on top of things too. So come to Paizo.com.
Excellent. Well, hey, thank you for your time, sir. You are a gentleman and a scholar. I'd say I promise not to tell anyone, but this is now on the recording. But thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was nice being here.
Finally, after a couple-hour break where I had a canceled interview, we had a chance to go over, and I sat down with one of the creators of the new app, Dized. Let's hear what they have to say about their application and their Kickstarter, which is actually running right now. All right, and we're still at Gen Con 2017, and I'm sitting here with the co-founder of Dized. So, sir, if you may, please introduce yourself and let us know in a quick nutshell what Dized is.
My name is Joni. I'm the co-founder of Play More Games, which is the company building Dized. And Dized is a smart device application that teaches you how to play board games. It is your friend at the table who teaches you how to play while you play. So you can skip the rulebook, no need to watch videos, no need to do any prep work, sit down with a new game and learn it just the same way you would learn a video game nowadays. You start playing and the tutorial tells you all the things you need to know at that point of the game.
All right, and what platform is the tutorial software being built for? Is it for computer? Is it a mobile app?
We're first publishing it for iOS and Android devices. But we're developing it on top of Unity, which is a platform that we're using, and that allows us to port it to any platform that we see that players are requesting. Hey, I really need it for my PC or Mac or, my Android Smart TV, and we can always port when there's enough audience requesting that.
So you're saying it's not going to be using videos or anything like that? Like you don't buy the new game and then do the YouTube search for how to play it. It's going to walk you through. How are you planning on having... I'm sorry, I'm like putting shadows in your face. This makes for exciting audio. How are you going to walk people through the games using this application?
We're using 3D animated voiceover tutorials. And I'll actually get you a little bit of a sound clip here if I get I don't know if everything is good to go. Let me just make sure we have the volume turned up. So let me start with the demo of Carcassonne.
French city of Carcassonne. Do you want to go through the setup of the game? It's time to start building Carcassonne, tile by tile. Players take turns one by one, in clockwise order. Every turn has 3 phases. First, you draw one tile from a stack.
Alright, I'm going to turn it off right now, but as you can see, it's 3D animated. Voiceover subtitle tutorial, so it supports different learning styles. Okay. And what we are doing with Dized is we're taking players immediately into the game. So I've now clicked to step 6 or 7 in the tutorial, and right now it's saying time for the first phase, placing a land tile. So now it's showing for the first player, pick up a tile, turn it around, inspect the tile. And here's the cool thing. We're asking players what sort of tile it was. And this is the player inputs that we're collecting in the app. And based on this player input, we can now show you how you can place this tile next to the first tile on the board, and how you cannot do that. And this is the smart part of this tutorial, because every time you play, you're going to draw a different tile. But this app allows us to customize to that, and we can show you how to place that specific tile onto the board. Now, I do want to point out that the focus will always be on the physical game on the table. This is basically what we want to simulate, the friend at the table who can show you. This is what you can do with this tile, but we want players to be able to make those actions and things that they can choose how to play the game. So you're playing the game, but this is the aid that helps you start the game without having to study anything before you start.
That is really cool. Now, hopefully I'll be able to get some screen caps from you guys to show on the blog post attached to this, because, folks, I'm telling you, this is, and I'm not just saying this because he's sitting here, this is really nice. As someone that does not have a tendency to pick up on game rules that quickly or easily, this is something I really think I can get behind. So I know you're looking to start off soon. We'll get into that in a moment. What games do you currently have that you're developing this for?
So the app is currently in development, and the launch date is scheduled to be in August 2018. And that's when we want to be able to say, now this is what we wanted to build. But it will be available a lot sooner than that. In fact, we're trying to push out the demo version, what you just saw.
Gen Con attendees, come learn and play over 50 different games for free. That's right, no ticket or fee required at the Rio Grande Room.
There's always one during every single interview.
I'm surprised. You're my fourth interview today. This is the first time it's happened.
Oh, all right. This is probably the sixth of mine, and this is the sixth announcement during an interview. All right. So what I was about to say that I don't remember.
We're talking about the game ready to go. Put it out August 2018, coming out earlier.
All right. So this demo version that you just saw, we're trying to push this out before our campaign or during the campaign, so people can actually download it, see how it works, how it looks like before they make a decision to back our campaign. So this is the Indiegogo campaign. I'll talk about that a bit later. Right now, the games that we have lined up we're very excited about these titles. So the first game we announced was Bang, and then Carcassonne, and now we've added Blood Rage, Scythe, this year's Spiel des Jahres winners, Ice Cool and King Domino. We have 7 Wonders announced already, and there's other cool, exciting titles I cannot yet speak about because we haven't announced them. But we're announcing these big titles just to show that we can. So the publishers of these titles are on board with this, and there's publishers like Hans im Glück for Carcassonne, Simon for Blood Rage. So we have the big publishers on board with this. And there's a lot of excitement on the industry side, publishers, retailers, board game cafes. Obviously, this is a great tool for them to be able to show these games for their audiences. And basically, this allows them to send the player home with the demo guy. So there's gonna be somebody at the home teaching you these games. So we already announced very exciting games and more to come.
Now, I know you did mention, and I mentioned both a little bit, that you do have a campaign starting up, going to be an Indiegogo campaign. Do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about that? Because that should only be about a week after this episode drops, if even that long.
Yeah, the campaign is launching on 28th of August on Indiegogo. And we're doing this campaign because right now we know that there's a lot of excitement out there, but we really want to build a big community to show both the players that there's a lot of interest in this and also the industry operators. The bigger we can make this campaign, the faster we can put this app out there with a substantial library. I know I only listed less than 10 titles right now. Our goal is to have hundreds or thousands of games supported on this on our app eventually. And this can be done with we're setting up an online tool set where publishers can have their in-house or hire a freelancer to build these tutorials. Kind of the same way you build website nowadays. You just use a service that's already available online. That's what we're doing for the publishers. Most likely it won't be like a Wikipedia thing where just everybody can go in for 2 reasons. First of all, we want to keep the quality premium. So every time you use a Dized tutorial, you know it's going to be awesome. And the second of all, we're toying with publishers' IPs. So you always need to have the permission from the publisher to use their IP in order to create these tutorials. So for these reasons, it's going to be an industry tool. But this tool allows us to have hundreds, if not thousands, of people globally doing these tutorials at the same time. And this is the way we can avoid the bottleneck issue. And have a lot of games, a substantial library built into the app very quickly. And this is why we need to have a big Indiegogo campaign, just to get everybody on board with what we're doing.
Now, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up because BusyCon, you got a lot of people really interested. They've got a throne of games over here that's taking people's names for get information about the program and everything, and so their booth is hopping. Where can my listeners be able to find information on you? I know when the Indiegogo comes out, I'll keep an eye open and get that put into the blog post attached to this episode, but where else can people find you?
Cool. Well, that's the last thing I'm going to mention. There's a couple of things now that you mentioned the Throne of Games. I want to talk about that. One thing I want to mention about the app, and this is the first thing I'll say, it will be free to download, and the tutorials will be free to use. Now, we have a subscription model for the people who want to take the full potential, unleash the full potential of the app, which means digital expansions for games, new content, new mechanics, soundtracks, AI players. There's a lot of local player search. There's a lot of fantastic features that we're developing for it. But that's one thing I wanted to mention. The other thing is this Game of Thrones. So we have this beautiful throne with over 120 board games right now. We're going to raffle all this on Sunday at 2 p.m. here at Gen Con. But since this has been so successful for us, we'll do this again on our campaign. So that's a good reason. That alone, back the campaign, and you can be an owner of more than 100 board games and a lot of other cool stuff. But check out the campaign to see all the nice things that will be on the raffle. And then the final thing, where you can find more information, dized.com would be your starting point. That's DIZED.com.
Attention Gen Con attendees, join Big
Almost done.
in Lucille Stadium for hundreds of mammoth, giant, and standard game events, including their...
And like every podcaster, this is not going to get edited out.
Probably not. Probably not. They probably know that. Well, at least what we can do is speak on top of it. Awesome. So yeah, dized.com, DIZED.com would be where you find all this information. It's worthwhile signing up to our newsletter, because when the campaign launches, we're going to send out a newsletter, and this will have a reference code that allows you to access our secret perks. So they give you just a bit better deal on Dized. So check out the newsletter before the campaign, and hopefully we'll get everybody on board.
All right, well, I know I'm really excited to see what you have out. I'm already signed up for the newsletter. That's how I'm going to, because first off, free games. Second off, I need to know what's going on so I can inform the listeners. So, but man, thank you very much for taking the time out to speak to me. I really appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the show, okay?
Thank you so much. It's time to get diced.
So that wraps up our interviews from Gen Con 50. Lizz and I both had a great time doing this, and I think Lizz really enjoyed doing her first ever interview for the podcast and the blog. Next year, this is going to be happening on August 2nd through the 5th, also at the Indiana Convention Center. So we're going to see what I can pull together for that next year, and we'll move on from there. So thank you all for listening. I will talk to you in just a few weeks, where I'm going to go back to interviewing local geeks, local creators, and cool things happening around the state of Indiana. I'd like to thank everybody for listening to this episode of the Indiana Geeking Podcast. You can find the blog post for this episode, as well as information like Hoosier convention listings, past podcast episodes, and more at indianageeking.com. If you like what I'm doing, there are ways you can help. First, you can make sure you subscribe through Apple Podcasts, Google Music, Stitcher, or whatever your preferred podcatcher is. Also, if your method allows it, I'd love it if you left me a rating and a review. Good or bad, it lets me know how I'm doing. If you'd like to help financially, you can go check out the Support Geeking in Indiana link posted at the side of the blog, where you can learn about how to support geeking by shopping through Amazon, making a one-time donation, making a monthly donation through Patreon, or even buying Indiana Geeking merchandise through the shop link. Before we go, I'd like to give a huge thanks to my $5 and above patrons for supporting the blog and podcast. One of their perks is a shout out on the cast, and I'm more than happy to give love to Becca, Claire, Kayla, Mal, Michael, Spencer, Tommy, and Tyler for their support. In addition, if the promo for Shocktober in Irvington sounds cool, then make sure to use the code GEEKING to get $1 off your ticket. Last but not least, I want to give a huge thanks to the local band's 5-Year Mission and the Shakeups for the music used in this episode. You can find track info on the blog post and find out more about the bands at 5yearmission.net and theshakeups.net accordingly. Thank you all for listening and your support. I'll see you next time, and always remember, live long and prosper, may the force be with you, may all your hits be crits, and as always, be excellent to each other.